good evening, everyone. I would like to just mention something. It says on the program that I'm a senior officer with the International Nuremberg Principles Academy. Just for clarity, I'm here in my personal capacity, and the view I will present today are my own, not my organization. I wanted to add this. So we have heard up until now that, and Çoşkun has explained it very clearly, that impunity in Turkey is not only an endemic problem, it has crystallized into legislation, into law. Impunity is now part of the legal and judicial system in Turkey. And so the absence of accountability, independent accountability mechanisms in the country has strongly impaired the capacity for victims to seek justice. And Turkey has undertaken several reforms, and Çoşkun has mentioned them. And the question is now, as we are today in Turkey, as victims in Turkey, what are the other avenues? And Mr. Stango has covered a lot of the points I wanted to cover, so I will try to take a different approach than his, and he's made a great presentation of the various mechanisms. So what I will do is, I will try maybe to take a victim-centered approach, like as a civil society organization representing victims or victims themselves. What are the avenues, judicial and non-judicial, open today among those presented by Mr. Stango, and more particularly, how to interact with those mechanisms and what to expect from them? And I think we've already gotten part of the answer about managing expectations and the limitations of those mechanisms. Domestic remedies being the main and the most effective way of seeking justice for victims. But in the absence of domestic remedies, what can we do? And so I will go through first the ECHR. I will go back, I think, to one or 2 points that I would like to add to build on Mr. Stango's position, and then I will move to the UN human rights mechanisms, and then discuss very briefly universal jurisdiction, because if I have time, Mr. Boye is gonna discuss it in more length. So regarding the ECHR, so we've heard, so the ECHR is one of the remedy open for victims, and Turkish victims and lawyers in Turkey have throughout the years used the ECHR as a platform for, as an extra step in the judicial process to seek justice for victims. And I think that around 40% of the decisions at the ECHR concern 3 member states, Turkey being the first one with 16% of the decision at the ECHR, then Russia and Italy. So you can see that the Turkish victims lawyers have widely used the ECHR European mechanisms to seek justice. After 2016, there was a lot, after the attempted coup, there is a high, extreme increase in the number of cases reaching the ECHR, the court. This is reflecting on the fact that the number of violations on the ground also increased significantly. And so the ECHR received thousands of applications from Turkish victims from varying quality. And this played a very big role also into the ECHR's response. So at the beginning, the ECHR got a bit scared, took a very timid approach, and rejected at the beginning a lot of decision on the basis that the victim had not, the claimant had not exhausted domestic remedies. Quoting, for example, that the constitutional, they haven't brought the case, before the constitutional court, or before this ad hoc commission, I won't go into detail, created by the government in Turkey. And so for a Turkish citizen, of course, they knew that those mechanisms were not effective, impartial, and independent. The courts refused at the beginning to make any position and rejecting the cases. The position has changed due to increased awareness, due to the number of reports and information regarding the effectiveness of domestic remedies in Turkey. And I wanted to mention one other point. I think I see that in terms of strategy, so that victims can bring a case at the ECHR. Cases rarely reach the stage of admissibility, but if they do, then there is a chance for having violations being found by the ECHR. And the question raised, and the point raised by Mr. Stango is the execution of this decision. Even if a victim manages to have the ECHR find a violation, what happened next? Is there actually an effective remedy, an implementation, execution at the domestic level? And the answer, and I went on the website of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe to see the latest figures. And so the latest figures date, I think it's March 2020. And around 900 cases are still pending execution in Turkey. So you see, it's still a lot of cases still pending execution at the domestic level. They're under scrutiny by the Committee of Ministers, but they haven't been implemented. And several cases that I can quote, I think the most famous cases are the Altan, Demirtas, and Kavala cases at the ECHR. Those 3 individuals are still in detention despite ECHR decisions stating that the detention was unlawful. So in terms of ECHR, as to take maybe the side of the civil society and victim, I think I would say that the ECHR, it's important to manage expectation with regard to the ECHR. It's an important step and an important mechanism to use, as Mr. Stango has explained, but it's also one with a lot of limitations. The ECHR doesn't have power to force Turkey to execute the decision, and this is why Turkey has been ignoring a lot of the decision rendered by the ECHR. So this is one of these limitations, but it's an important one. The other one I would like to mention are the UN human rights mechanisms. And maybe because you've already done a great presentation of the mechanisms, I will see how, and this is something I have done last year when I used to work with the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute with the Arrested Lawyers Initiative. It's advocacy at the Human Rights Council at the UN level. And there is a lot that can be done and that could be done at this level. It's a system which is an alternative to the lack of domestic remedy, but it's an imperfect system as you explained. Decisions are non-binding. It's for some of the mechanisms a political process, like the Human Rights Council sessions, like the Universal Periodic Review. Those are political process. There is no real implementation. There is no obligation for states to implement the recommendation made during the Universal Periodic Review, or for a state to implement decision by a committee, such as the Committee Against Torture. But despite this lack of this lack of implementation, this doesn't reduce the importance of reporting cases and sending information to UN human rights mechanisms. And the reason is that the fight against impunity takes time. It takes years and years and years and years before a case, a prosecution investigation can be opened. It could be 10 years, 20 years, it could be tomorrow. But in the meantime, it is essential that violations committed are referenced, are collected, are archived. And one of the best ways to do it is by sending information to those UN human rights mechanisms in the form of reports, submission to special procedures, committees. And of course, those people have to follow a certain methodology. And this is what the Arrested Lawyers Initiative has been working on. They have provided researched information, credible information to UN human rights mechanisms, which have in turn referred to their reports and information in their own reports. And you have a lot of them referenced on their website. Another way is individual complaints. Some treaty bodies, such as the Committee Against Torture, can also receive individual complaints from individuals, and Turkey has accepted this possibility. And it is important for victims also to seize to use those individual complaints. When we went to Geneva, it was a year ago, we met with the working groups on arbitrary detention. And we were very surprised when they told us that they barely received any applications from Turkish victims. Same for the working group on enforced disappearance. And I think it's really important that work is being done, and it's not easy to send applications. So this is why it's the role of civil society organization, international organization, to assist local organization and local victims to seize those mechanisms. But there is a lot that can be done. It can still be done. And I really encourage everyone, and I know the Arrested Lawyers Initiative has been doing tremendous work in this sense. I will finish with maybe universal jurisdiction. I will leave it on the side. As Mr. Stango mentioned, it's an important mechanism. It's a new one which is developing strongly which has been developing strongly in the recent years. It is ultimately one of the best alternatives, but it's one of the most difficult one to use also. And I'm sure Mr. Bowie will discuss this. So there's one other point I wanted to mention was the International Criminal Courts, which is on the side because Turkey has not ratified the Rome Statute. So bringing the International Criminal Court is very unlikely to be investigating or prosecuting Turkish citizens or crimes committed in Turkey in the near future. One of the options that could be open is a referral by the Security Council, which has the power to refer a situation of a non-state party. But as you know, in light of the current political situation, it is very unlikely that the Security Council would refer a situation to the ICC, especially with those 2 consecutive vetoes by China and Russia in the situation of Syria. So I think I will conclude by just highlighting the importance of civil society and victims to continue their work, and despite the frustration and the lack of immediate results for victims, to continue this work of advocacy and recording violations. And this also goes with sending information to public organizations, but also in the way you collect the information in your own databases. It is important that you collect information based on international standards. You have several manuals that are available, and this is, I think, a good exercise. And referring to organizations working on this, I wanted to mention 3 organizations that, in addition to the Arrested Lawyers Initiative. In Turkey, there are a lot of human rights organizations doing great work. One of them being the Truth, Justice, Memory Center, which works on uncovering gross human rights violations. And they have been working on enforced disappearance. And they worked in close collaboration with UN human rights bodies and other organizations. And they have been collecting and gathering information on the various enforced disappearing that happen in South and Southeastern Turkey. So it's an organization which is worth looking at. And the other one is the Human Rights Association and the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey that works on torture. And if you want more information on those organizations, I'm more than happy to share their website. Thank you very much.